She threw a drink in my face during an argument and laughed. I just wiped it off. It wasn't the first time she'd done something like that, but it was the last. The argument itself was stupid. Something about me not being enthusiastic enough about her friend's new multi-level marketing scheme. We were in the living room, the one we'd shared for 2 years. The television was off. The only sounds were her shouting and then the splash. It was a cold, sugary soda, and it dripped from my hair down onto the collar of my shirt. Her laughter was the worst part. It wasn't a nervous giggle, it was a full-throated, mocking laugh, as if I were a clown in her personal circus. I didn't say a word. I stood there for a second, the sticky liquid running down my temples, and just looked at her. Her name is Jenna. Her smile was wide and triumphant. I turned, walked to the bathroom, and grabbed a towel. As I dried my face, I could hear her still chuckling in the other room, probably typing out a dramatic version of the story to her friends. I took a picture of the dark splash pattern on the light gray wall behind where I'd been standing, noting the time on my phone's camera, 9:14 p.m. Then, I took another of the puddle on the hardwood floor. I cleaned up her mess, went into our bedroom, and closed the door. Our landlord, Mr. Henderson, is an old-school guy. He owns 3 properties on our street and lives in one of them. He's retired military, keeps everything immaculate, and has a zero-tolerance policy for drama. It's right there in the lease agreement we both signed. I had a digital copy saved in my email. I opened my laptop, found the PDF, and scrolled to Section 12B. It was titled, Tenant Conduct. The clause was clear. Any act of aggression, violent behavior, intimidation, or intentional property damage is grounds for immediate termination of the lease for the offending party. I composed a short professional email. The subject line was, Incident Report, Apartment 3B. I wrote, Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to report an incident that occurred tonight at 9:14 p.m. During a verbal disagreement, my co-tenant, Jenna M., threw a drink at me inside the apartment, resulting in a mess on the wall and floor. I have attached time-stamped photos for your reference. This is not the first time her anger has escalated to a physical action, but it is the first time I have felt the need to formally document it. I am concerned about this pattern of volatile behavior. Per Section 12B of our lease agreement, I am requesting your guidance on this matter. I attached the 2 photos and hit send. Then I packed a small bag. I wasn't sleeping there tonight. I went to my friend Mark's place. The next morning, I got a reply from Mr. Henderson at 7:30 a.m. It was brief. Mr. My last name, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will handle it. Please expect a call from me later today. I went about my day. I didn't answer any of the dozen texts Jenna sent, which ranged from angry, "Are you seriously giving me the silent treatment? Grow up," to fake concerned, "Are you okay? I'm worried about you." Around 4 p.m., my phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson. "It's done," he said, his voice flat. "I spoke with Miss M. I delivered her a 30-day eviction notice personally. The reason cited is violent behavior in violation of Tenant Conduct Policy 12B. She is solely responsible for vacating. Your lease will be amended to reflect you as the sole tenant once she is out. I don't tolerate that nonsense in my buildings. Let me know if there are any further issues." I thanked him. He just grunted and hung up. An hour later, my phone exploded. It was Jenna. She was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You got me evicted. You went to the landlord over a spilled drink? Are you insane?" I waited for her to take a breath. "It wasn't a spilled drink, Jenna. You threw it at me, and you laughed. I'm done." I hung up the phone. She called back 7 more times. I didn't answer. Then the text started again, this time from her sister, Chloe. Chloe was always the reasonable one. Her text read, "What is going on? Jenna is hysterical. Said you got her kicked out." I replied, "She threw a drink in my face and laughed about it. The landlord has a strict policy on that kind of behavior. It was her choice." Chloe didn't reply for a while. Jenna's 30 days were a nightmare of passive aggression. She'd slam doors, play loud music at odd hours, and leave her stuff all over the common areas. I just ignored it. I documented everything with photos and short notes, just in case, but I never had to use them. I spent most of my time at Mark's place anyway. He let me crash on his couch. "Dude, you did the right thing," he said one night. "That's not normal. People don't do that." It was good to hear it from someone else. I knew it wasn't normal, but I had gotten so used to her outbursts that my sense of reality was warped. On the final day of the month, she moved her stuff out while I was at work. I came home to an empty apartment. Well, almost empty. She'd taken some things that were definitely mine: a bookshelf, a nice lamp, or a good set of kitchen knives. She'd also left a parting gift: a long, deep scratch on the living room wall where the sofa used to be, and on the kitchen counter, a pile of unpaid bills. They were all addressed to her, but they were for shared utilities: electricity, gas, and internet. They were all past due. I took a picture of the scratch on the wall. I gathered the bills. The total she owed for her half was $287.54. I also knew that Mr. Henderson would take the cost of repairing the wall scratch out of our security deposit, which we had split. The estimate he sent me later was $200, so she owed me her half of that, another $100. Grand total, $387.54. I sent her a polite text message with a clear breakdown in the total. Jenna, here is your share of the final utility bills and the wall repair. Please send the $387.54 by the end of the week. Her reply came back instantly. Lol, you think I'm giving you a dime after you made me homeless? Go f yourself. I didn't reply. Instead, I paid all the utility bills in full to protect my own credit. I paid Mr. Henderson for the wall repair directly so the full security deposit would be returned to me. I now had receipts for everything. I saved them as PDFs. The next day, I logged into my banking app and sent her a formal payment request for $387.54 with the memo: Final Utilities Damages Reimbursement, App 3B. She declined it within minutes. I waited a week. Then I sent her a formal letter through certified mail. It's a little old-fashioned, but it creates a paper trail that's hard to ignore. The letter stated the amount owed, included photocopies of all the receipts, and gave her a deadline of 10 business days to pay before I would pursue other avenues to collect the debt. I knew she received it because I got the delivery confirmation. She didn't respond. The other avenue was small claims court. The filing fee in my county was $50. I filled out the paperwork online, uploaded the PDFs of the receipts, the lease agreement section on damages, the payment request screenshot, and the certified mail confirmation. I laid out the facts simply and without emotion. A week later, she was served with a notice to appear in court. That's when her sister Chloe called me. She sounded exhausted. She just called me, crying and screaming that you're suing her. Over less than $400? Really? I was calm. Chloe, it's not about the money, it's about the principle. She agreed to pay her share. She caused damage. She thinks she can just walk away from her responsibilities. I'm not letting her. I explained the steps I had taken: the polite text, the payment request, the certified letter. I told her Jenna had refused every single time. I'm not trying to make her life hard, I said. I'm just holding her accountable. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She told us you were being controlling and kicked her out for no reason, Chloe said quietly. She left out the part about the drink, the bills, and the wall. I just said, I have pictures of all of it, Chloe. I could hear her sigh. I believe you, she said. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. My sister, she has a habit of making her own reality. We hung up on good terms. That conversation felt like a bigger win than the money. A few days later, the social media campaign started. Jenna didn't name me, but it was obvious. She posted vague statuses about escaping a toxic and controlling relationship and how she was starting over from scratch after being thrown out on the street. Her friends, who only knew her side of the story, flooded the comments with support. You're so strong. His loss. We've got your back. It was nauseating to see. Mark saw it and called me, furious on my behalf. Are you gonna let her get away with this? You need to post your side of the story. Post the receipts. I told him no. Fighting with her online is what she wants, I said. It gives her more fuel. It makes me look just as dramatic as she is. I'm not playing that game. My plan was much simpler. We had a handful of mutual friends who were genuinely good people I cared about. I didn't want them to think I was some kind of monster. I created a group chat with 3 of them, 2 couples we used to hang out with. I started the chat with a simple message. Hey guys, I know you've probably seen some stuff online from Jenna. I'm not going to air dirty laundry publicly, but I did want you to have the facts directly from me, since I value our friendships. Then, I attached 4 things. The first was the original picture of the soda splashed on the wall. The second was a screenshot of Mr. Henderson's email confirming he was issuing the eviction notice for violent behavior. The third was the screenshot of her text message saying, "Go f yourself," when I asked for the bill money. The fourth was a screenshot of one of her public posts, the one where she claimed she was thrown out for no reason. I finished my message with, "She threw a drink at me, refused to pay her bills, and was evicted by our landlord based on a clause she signed. I've now had to take her to small claims court to get her to pay for utilities she used. Those are the facts. Hope you guys are doing well." The response was immediate. One of the friends, Sarah, replied, "Oh my God, I had no idea. She told us you two just had a small fight and you overreacted." Her husband added, "Wow, that's messed up. Thanks for letting us know the truth." The other couple echoed the sentiment. Within an hour, I had 4 people who knew the real story. I didn't ask them to take sides or confront her. I just gave them the evidence. The fallout was quiet but swift. One of the friends later told me that Sarah had privately messaged Jenna and asked her why her story was so different from the proof I had provided. Jenna apparently flew into a rage, accusing Sarah of betraying her. That friendship ended right there. The social circle she had weaponized against me began to crumble, not because of anything I said, but because of the evidence of her own actions. The best part, though, was the call I got from Chloe about a week before the court date. She was livid, but not at me. "She tried to borrow money from our parents to pay you," Chloe said. "She told them you were suing her out of spite and harassing her. She completely lied to them. I was there and I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I told them everything. I showed them the texts you sent me. I told them about the drink, the bills, the wall." My dad was furious. He called her and told her she needed to grow up and take responsibility for her own messes. He refused to give her a cent. Jenna had apparently screamed at Chloe, calling her a traitor. They hadn't spoken since. "So she's cut me off now," Chloe said, her voice heavy. "But honestly, it's a relief. I'm tired of covering for her. I hope you get your money." On the day of court, I showed up in a button-down shirt, holding a small folder with all my documents printed out and organized. Jenna was already there, sitting on the bench outside the courtroom, dressed dramatically in all black. She was texting furiously on her phone. She looked up and glared at me but didn't say anything. When our case was called, we went inside. The judge was an older woman who looked like she had seen everything twice. She was patient but had an air of absolute nonsense. She asked me to state my case. I stood up and presented the facts calmly. I showed her the lease, the photos of the wall, the utility bills, the receipts proving I had paid them, the screenshots of my attempts to collect the money from Jenna, and the certified mail confirmation. I explained the situation in about 2 minutes. I didn't mention the drink throwing. I kept it focused only on the financial matters. It was a simple case of unpaid debt and property damage. The judge then turned to Jenna. "Miss M, what is your response?" Jenna stood up and launched into a tearful, rambling story about how I was a manipulative ex trying to ruin her life. She said I had been emotionally abusive for years, that I had kicked her out of our home unexpectedly, and that this lawsuit was just another form of harassment. She claimed the bills were fake and that the scratch on the wall was there when we moved in. The judge listened without expression. When Jenna was done, she looked down at the paperwork I had submitted. She picked up the photo of the scratch. "You say this scratch was pre-existing, Miss M? Did you note it on your move-in inspection form?" Jenna stammered, "Well, no, we didn't do one of those." The judge then looked at the lease agreement. "This is your signature here, correct? The one next to the clause agreeing to pay for any damages found upon move-out?" Jenna quietly said yes. The judge then looked at the utility bills. "And these bills cover the period when you were living in the apartment, do they not?" Jenna had to admit that they did. "And you have no proof that you paid your portion of these bills?" "He was supposed to handle it." She tried. "That's not what the bill says," the judge said, pointing. "The account is in your name." One of the major bills, the electricity, had been in her name. It was an oversight on my part not to have it changed earlier, but it worked in my favor now. Her argument completely fell apart. The judge was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "This is a straightforward case of unresolved shared expenses. The evidence provided by the plaintiff is clear and documented. The defendant's testimony is emotional but lacks any factual basis or evidence to refute the claim." She banged her gavel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $387.54 plus the $50 filing fee. Total of $437.54. You will receive payment instructions by mail, Miss M. Do not be late. Jenna just stood there, her mouth open. She looked completely stunned. I just gathered my papers, said, "Thank you, Your Honor," and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't look back at her. Driving home, I didn't feel ecstatic or triumphant. I just felt quiet. The whole thing was finally over. The money would eventually show up, or I'd have to file another form to garnish it, but the principle was settled. The judgment was a piece of paper that said, "You were right, the facts matter." That was worth more than the $437.54. A few weeks went by. I got a check in the mail from the court collections office for the full amount. She had paid. I guess the threat of further legal action was enough. I used the money to buy a new bookshelf and a new lamp, replacing the ones she had taken. The apartment started to feel like my own space. The energy was different. It was calm. One evening I was sitting on my couch, reading a book. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it. "I hope you're happy. You ruined my life over a few $100s. You're a pathetic, lonely man and you always will be." It had to be her. I looked at the message for a long moment. I thought about all the anger, the stress, the drama of the past few months. I thought about her mocking laughter as soda dripped down my face, and I realized none of it could touch me anymore. I blocked her number. The apartment was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like home.